Hey there, it's Eileen Gilbo with the Gilbo Group, and today I am here with Jared Penn of Prosperity Lending to discuss the January 2021 market update. As you know, so many things have been happening in the past year. So 2020 for the real estate market, in my opinion, was a little nutso. It kind of came out of nowhere that we had so much market activity that we did not really, or I actually did not think that we would see because of the election and just a few other things. So we're going to talk about that today. So the election, I don't know if you really saw anything with mortgage rates during the election, but I had so many clients freaking out because the election was coming.
And they thought rates were going to go up or go down?
Both.
Okay.
I mean, they thought, well, if this guy gets in, the market's going to crash. If this guy gets in, everything's going to be fine. But I honestly think that we see that, at least I've seen that since I've been in real estate, every single election cycle.
So I've never really focused too much on who's in office as to what's going to happen with the market, because we've had Democrats, we've had Republicans, and although sometimes there's been, I've made a little bit more money one year, the previous person that was in office, we did very well also. I look at more of the statistics to the nation, to inventory, to where interest rates are, home affordability. That's how I've always looked at it, not really who's in office.
Yeah, well, and I think that it's just part of that cycle that comes to play, that I think we do find it politically that a lot of people end up saying, oh, hey, they try to pull you one way or the other, when I think it kind of just, washes out in the end.
I think it's a lot of fear too. They want you to vote one way, so they try to tell you everything bad that's going to happen.
Right.
The other side will tell you everything bad that's going to happen if this guy gets elected, and so it's all just based on fear. I try to take that out of it and just look at the statistics of the market and housing market, in a whole for the country.
Agreed. Yeah, I think that's the way that we have to look at it, because real estate is cyclical. So it goes up, it goes down, and honestly, if you really hold on to those holdings, you'll find that if it goes down, it always comes back up.
Right.
So that's what we've seen.
And one of the things that I've heard too recently is if Democrats take power of, the Senate and the House and the White House, the stock market's going to crash. This is going to be really bad for us. As soon as Georgia elections were finished and they knew who won, the next day and the day after, there's been record numbers with the stock market and the S&P and the NASDAQ. So I just really don't buy into a lot of that fear stuff that you hear on the news.
So those are all great points about the election. My next question that I have had every single client that I know ask me is the market going to crash again like it did in 2007, 2008? Is that something that on the lending side that you foresee?
Listen, anything can happen, as we saw in 2020 with the pandemic. Nobody saw that happening and coming.
Right.
And it definitely affected, how our year worked out. But based on everybody that I listen to, the things that I read, I don't see it coming. And here's why. The average homeowner in the United States has about $100,000 in equity in their house.
Right.
So let's say you lost your job and you can't afford to keep your house anymore. Would you foreclose on your house and lose that equity that you have in your house? Or would you call a realtor like yourself, list your house and get what you could out of it, put that money in the bank, and then go start over in a rental property? My thought would be that that's what you'd go do. You would take your money while you could and go start over with, let's say, $100,000 in the bank.
Yeah.
So I just don't see that happening.
And I think the point is, though, that people need the education, because I don't know that everybody understands how that equity works. I think that a lot of times the fear-based is that, oh my gosh, I haven't made my payment in 6 months, I'm going to lose my house. Not even understanding that they have that equity. So I think they really need to partner with somebody who can give them the information of, hey, listen, if you sold your house right now, this is how much you'd walk away with net, that you can do that. You can put that in a bank. You can go find a rental. You can possibly buy a smaller house, that maybe I guess if you don't have your job, you can't really go buy a smaller house.
Right.
But eventually, if you get your job back and everything gets back on track, you can go and get something that you can afford at that time. But I think the thing that everybody seems to be functioning off of is the fear of the uncertainty. And I think that having people in their corner that can give them the data to make a smart decision really helps.
For sure. And you brought up a good point a minute ago where you said if you miss 6 payments. That's a great point. 12 years ago when we went through the crash last time in 2008, 2007, the minute you were 60 or 90 days late on your mortgage, the banks were in there trying to take your home from you.
Absolutely.
Today, and I've already seen it, there are people that had a 6-month forbearance. The banks are now adding that forbearance money to the back of their loan, and they're starting fresh.
Yeah.
So the banks are on board with trying to keep people in their homes as well.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why I just don't see this rash of foreclosures happening, because everybody is working and pulling in the same direction to make sure that that doesn't happen. Where in 2008, they weren't doing that.
Right. Well, and I mean, it lasted so long that I don't think that people understand how many changes were made in the banks, that they weren't doing signature, you signed this document saying you make $1 million a month and you can go buy a home.
Right.
I don't know that they understand a lot of people, because it's not their job to really. It's not their job to keep up with everything happening if they don't need to.
Right.
So by the time they're asking the questions, the panic has kind of already set in. So, I mean, right now, I think the banks are in a good position to help.
Right.
Rather than to, repeat what wasn't working the last time around.
And another thing, you brought it up a minute ago, a lot of people weren't really qualified back then to buy a house.
Right.
The joke is if you could fog a mirror and you had a good credit score, you could get another house, 3, 4, 5 houses.
Right.
Nowadays, what we do is we verify everything. You have to have money down, or we'd call skin in the game, to get qualified for a house. So
right.
We've done everything that we can, and the banks have, to ensure that something like this happens again, there's enough there for people not to lose their houses.
Right.
So some of the other things that I've seen too is 30-day lates on current mortgages are down to 6%, and 60 days and past are at 0.07.
Oh, wow.
So the data doesn't show that, oh my gosh, there's a lot of people 90, 120 days late where we would see this big amount of foreclosures coming. The data just doesn't show that people are that past due on their houses right now.
Yeah. Do you think that the Las Vegas market is more impacted than the national market?
The easy answer would be yes, because of the casinos, right?
Right.
And if people can't come here because of the pandemic, then we can't work. We're seeing casinos that are closed 3 days a week, and a lot of people laid off. Bartenders aren't making as much. But here's something that Nevada has that some other places don't have, and that's California. California is a disaster right now. People are leaving there quicker than we can even think of.
Yeah.
And they're coming to Nevada. You're seeing houses in Las Vegas sell for more than appraised value.
Right.
You're seeing houses in Reno, Lake
Oh my
Tahoe,
gosh, yeah.
sell big bucks from
Right.
these tech companies that no longer have to go in at San Francisco and Sacramento,
Right.
that can now come to Nevada to save on taxes. As long as we have those people coming from California to Nevada, even if they're not casino workers, they're going to continue. They're going to continue keeping our market going and hot, and the homes are going to fly off the market. On top of that, we have record low inventory, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you could speak more to that.
Yeah.
The inventory is just not there.
Right.
So you have a seller's market, and you have a big demand coming from California. And I think that's the combination of why, for the next foreseeable future, I see Las Vegas really being okay and getting through this, even going through the pandemic.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the last that we checked, there was maybe a month worth of inventory, which at a balanced seller-buyer's market, you have 6 months of inventory. So to only have a month of inventory is unheard of since, I mean, it's been 11 years since I've been in the industry, unheard of.
Right.
To only have a month worth of inventory.
And that's going on as we're sitting in a global pandemic.
Exactly.
As casinos are closed 3 days a week, as people have been laid off, we're still at a month's of inventory.
Right.
What's going to happen as we start to get through this pandemic and more people go back to work and more businesses open and we still have all the people coming from California?
Right.
I just, for those reasons, I don't see this rash of foreclosures happening.
Right.
Could the rental market be reset? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you have some landlords that haven't been getting paid. They're in trouble. They're going to kick those renters out. Those renters are going to go to another landlord who kicks that person out. And all you're going to do is see a turnover of rentals.
Right.
But the housing market, the people that are actually making their mortgage payments for owner-occupied people, I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I have to say that I agree with you 100%. So no crystal ball. But
Yeah.
I mean, that's what seems to be happening right now.
For sure.
Another, I mean, so it's funny because I keep getting all of these questions, and I actually did a poll on Facebook to see what people were interested in learning about. So refinance. So can you first off explain what refinance is for people who may not know?
So refinance means we're going to redo the terms of your mortgage that you have today. So let's say somebody has a 4% interest rate. We're going to refinance those terms and redo the mortgage down to where interest rates are today and start the loan over.
Okay. So now does that mean that they have to come in with a down payment, with closing costs? I mean, are they writing that big check? And I guess it's not writing a check, right? They're wiring those
Right.
those funds. That you can tell how old I am. But is that what they're doing? I mean, are they coming in with a bunch of cash again to refinance?
There are closing costs involved in a refinance, but you're able to roll those into the new loan. Most people, 95%, I would say, just roll them right into the new mortgage and finance it over 30 years.
Okay.
There are a few people, I'd say 5%, that decide to write a check or wire the money for that difference so that they're not financing those costs over the life of the loan.
Okay, so essentially they can refinance with what are the costs? I mean, is there like, I know you probably have to pay for an appraisal sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So is that
would-
one of the only costs that they might have?
I would say on average between the hard costs on a loan, which would be appraisal, title fees, and lender fees, and your prepaid taxes and insurance for your escrow account, I would say on average you're looking at maybe $4,000 to $5,000 that gets rolled into the loan.
Okay.
You did just bring up a good point about appraisals. On a lot of homes today, and I've seen this, really get good since the pandemic, I'd say about 70 to 80% of the refinances we're doing where people are not pulling cash out, we're getting appraisal waivers. So that saves people that charge for the appraisal, and you don't have to worry about somebody coming into your house.
Right.
If you're doing a cash out refinance, more like 80 to 90% of those will need appraisals because it's a little bit riskier to the bank.
Okay, and can you explain what a cash out refi is?
Yeah, see, I tried to lead you right into the cash out there. That's perfect. That was my goal.
You're like, this is my next question.
Exactly. I'm
Here
going to
you
roll
go.
you right into it. So a cash out refinance is when you pull some of the equity out of your house sooner than waiting until you sell your house. It doesn't mean that you lose all of your equity. It just means that you're getting some of your money sooner than later. Now, those loans are a little bit riskier for the bank, so those rates tend to be about 1/4 to 0.5% higher than just a normal refinance.
What would be the reason someone might do a cash out refi?
To pay off high interest debt. So let's say your credit cards are at 15 or 20%, your car notes at 8%. You could borrow money at, let's say, 3.5% and get that higher debt paid off, that higher interest debt paid off, and put your family in a better financial situation. That's what smart, financial, savvy people do in this country when I talk to them.
Yeah.
They're always borrowing money from somebody else at a very low rate of interest and getting money paid off over here somewhere else. And the stock market historically is at, returns of 8 to 10% a year. So if you borrow money at 3% and you're saving money and it's earning 8 to 10%, you're netting that 5 to 6% difference every year. And that's how wealthy people really build wealth.
Yeah, well, and I hate to keep repeating this phrase, but you really are with your home building wealth.
Correct.
I mean,
Yep.
ultimately, yes, you want a place for your family. You want, a roof over their head. But I mean, somebody who did not come from money, whose family struggled. I have learned through the years of being in this industry that owning a home and being smart about that process, about, where you buy, the interest rate that you buy at, what you could possibly sell that home for later, that is, huge in building wealth in families. And I think that's a point that, a lot of people need to start looking at it as, is that it's a wealth building opportunity.
Absolutely. I think the old way of thinking where you get a house, you stay there for 30 years, you get it paid off, and then you retire is a little old fashioned. And here's why. A couple years ago, I got a call from a client, an older woman who is just not, her Social Security was just not cutting it anymore. I want to say she was, $1,100 or $1,200 a month. And she had this house, but she had medical bills and debt that she had to get paid.
Yeah.
She had $250,000 in equity in her house. It was paid off. She had done the right thing. She grew up, she made every payment, house is paid in full.
Yeah.
Now she needed money. She couldn't get money out at the time. She didn't make enough to qualify for a mortgage to get that money out. Now, the good news is there are new programs like reverse mortgages and things like that to help people in that situation. Thank goodness for those. But can you imagine the old way of thinking where you go 30 years, you pay off your house, and then you need the money and you can't get it?
Right.
Where if you use your house now as an asset, you have high interest debt, you want to get paid off, pull some of that money out now. Get a lower interest rate. Use your house to better your financial situation outside of that house instead of just paying on a house for 30 years and hoping things are going to work out.
Right.
When you're 70 or 80 years old.
Right.
Use that now while you still can to put yourself in a better financial situation.
Yeah. Another story, I have a friend of mine who actually pulled money out to put it in the stock market. Mm-hmm. He did a cash out refi, of course, did not take all the equity out, but felt that there was enough equity there that it made more financial sense for him to put it in the stock market. And that's what he did. I mean, I think it's good to know that there are options, and everyone is going to use that equity, for something that is going to be beneficial to them.
Right. And your friend, it was a very smart decision. So I'm sure his rate's around 3%. His money probably earned 10%. So he netted 7% more, and he didn't have to sell his house to do it. He still owns the house, and the house continues to appreciate, which my notes say about 8% from the last 12 months.
Yeah.
So he earned potentially 7% more on his money in the stock market, and his house he still owns and made about another 8%.
Exactly.
So that was a great financial decision that he had.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there's just so many ways we need to really align with people who can guide us in the way that's going to best benefit our situation, our family, what our ultimate goal is, with our lives, I guess.
Definitely.
Because there's definitely a whole lot of options out there.
Yeah, I would steer clear of talking to family members and neighbors and coworkers and talk more to professionals like yourself or myself that have been doing this a long time.
Right.
We've been through the good, the bad, the ugly, good again. And so, anybody that's been in this industry 5 years or less, although they may be doing a great job, they haven't seen the full scope of everything that you and I have been through these last 12 or 13 years. We've seen a lot.
Yeah, and honestly, it's a testament to you because we have known each other. I think you were one of two lenders I met 11 years ago when I first started.
Yeah.
And we still do business all the time.
Yep.
And you don't find that in this industry. You find people you want to stay away from, but you don't generally find people that over and over again that you're looking forward to working with.
Absolutely. It's a great point. A lot of lenders left when times got tough back in 08 to 2012.
Yeah.
Then they came back when things got good in 2016 and 17. So for me, I would rather work with somebody who's got some scars,
Yeah.
some war wounds,
Yeah.
from some of the stuff that we went through in this market, the housing market,
Absolutely.
the last 10 to 15 years. So
Yeah.
definitely for both of us.
Yeah. This is going to be an ongoing series that we discuss the market as far as lending, as far as the real estate market, and just kind of everything in between, how it affects you personally, and the things that we're seeing that you need to know about. So if you have questions and you want to get them to us, text, DM, call, and we'll discuss them on the next episode. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon. Bye.